hold the book up, shouldn't I?
Okay, here we are. Hi, everyone. I'm Mitzi Szereto, and I'm back on Facebook Live with another episode for the Best New True Crime Stories. And today we'll be doing the Best New True Crime Stories, Unsolved Crimes and Mysteries. And I'm here with a guest who's been on with me before, David Breakspear, who's coming to us in the UK. Hi, David.
Hi, Mitzi, and hello, everyone else.
Hi. How is life treating you in Belady?
It's been pretty cold lately, and it's a sore subject today because we just got served by the French in rugby at Twickenham, the biggest defeat ever the biggest defeat ever at Twickenham. So not a good day.
You should have a black armband on.
It was painful to watch. It really was. It was. It got to the point where it's embarrassing.
Oh dear, that's not good. That's not good. Well, I was going to say you're a typical Brit, though, if the first thing you brought up was the weather.
Well, I don't want to let anyone down. Of course, it's going to be the first, and especially in the winter as well. We're a couple of weeks away from spring, I suppose, so I'm still right to stay in the winter. But yeah, it's been a bizarre year so far, weather-wise.
It's been a bizarre couple of years or a few years. I don't know when. I can't remember when it wasn't a bizarre year. It's all a blur.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Very true. But at least it gives us something to talk about and open shows with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm really glad you're able to come back on with me today. And we are actually going to chat a bit about your story called Neighbors at War, the disappearance of John Favara. And this is an interesting story. And as we were saying in the green room, very complicated. There's lots of arms and legs and things intertwining and the complexities, which we won't get into because you really do need this story to read it to get all these nuances. But set us up a bit about the story. Where and when does your story take place?
My story actually begins in 1983. But only briefly, and then it goes back to 18th of March 1980 and the tragic death of Frankie Gotti in Queens, New York.
Which is part of Long Island,
Queens
right?
Park, so yeah.
So this is a mob story, but actually the gentleman who is the person who disappeared was not a mobster. So tell us who is John Favara? Give us some background on who he was, what he did, what kind of person he was.
Well, he was a married man. They couldn't have children and so adopted. And I suppose he was a regular Joe, really. He was a manager of I'm not sure what kind. I think it was a furniture warehouse. Furniture warehouse. I wasn't 100% what it was that they sold there. And yeah, he was just a regular guy. And until the accident, and obviously he then come onto the radar of who was capo at the time, John Gotti of the Gambino family.
Well, in this particular instance, then, so John was just basically going about his daily business, nothing special about the day, but something very fateful happened, which is the accident you referred to. So what was this accident?
Well, there was a bunch of kids that were playing on a mini motorbike near a construction site. And as Favara come round the corner in his car, it was Frankie that was riding a mini bike at the time, shot out from behind a dumpster, I believe it was. And obviously it was too late for Favara to stop and hit him. What followed was, how can I put it? What followed was well, neighbours at war. It was a case of neighbours at war. Rumours were going about that he had been drinking previously, although it had been classed by the police following the traffic investigators. They classed it as an accident.
So it's really the kind of accident that could happen to any of us. I mean, you know, kids are careless, they don't think, and they shoot out in front of traffic, and the poor bugger who's driving along ends up having their life destroyed because they hit the kid. And in this particular instance, this kid did not survive, right?
He didn't know. He made it to hospital, but by the time everyone was there, he had gone. Yeah, sadly.
And I mean, this would have been devastating to anybody. I mean, and obviously Favara was rightly devastated by this. But there's also an extra bonus in the story where it's not that you just hit the neighbor's kid, but who was the neighbor?
Exactly. Well, it was the rear back garden neighbor. Sorry, rear back garden. It was the back garden or rear yard neighbor. But yeah, he was the neighbor of at the time Gambino Capo, who went on to become boss of the Gambino family, John Gotti.
Yeah, that sounds like something you just don't want to have happen.
No, well, you said it can happen to almost any of us, but the chances of running the son of a mob boss over, I thought would be quite well in the area, probably not. Because the area they lived in, it was quite mob heavy. But yeah, that I mean, you would have thought that Favara would have moved away, and that they were well, exactly. But they were close to selling their house before he went missing. They were literally waiting to sign contracts, and they would have been gone.
Well, and also in the story you mentioned about the Gottis, I mean, obviously, if your kid is killed, you're not going to take it well, but they really didn't take it well. And so there was some threats made, if I'm correct, against Favara and his wife.
Yeah, there was. I mean, obviously, it wasn't just it was the neighbours as well. It was people in the area were basically. They didn't want him in the area. He was very much blamed, regardless of whether or not it was an accident. He was blamed, and he wasn't the most liked person there. The police received a number of complaints about him being there, and warnings as well that his life's in danger. But he wouldn't accept it. He wouldn't accept it. And the name slipped my mind at the moment, but another guy who used to be I forgot their name now. I'm rubbish at names.
That's okay. Me too.
His dad was part or was an old capo of the Gambino family, his friend's dad, and it was his friend that had basically convinced him that he should go. And as I say, the house was up for sale. They had looking to exchange contracts. I mean, I think they were about a week away from actually moving out. So yeah, he was, I suppose, unfortunate more than once.
Yeah, definitely. But so Favara, you know, he's working at Castro Convertibles, which I think, I don't know if they're still in business, but I think they were quite big in the sofa business, in the selling sofas in the United States. But so Favara really did not have any mob connections. I mean, other than a family member, which sounds like that's par for the course considering
it was a friend. Yeah, it was a friend. It was the kind of, the friend had links. But no, I mean, but then anyone in that area, it would have been difficult not to have known someone that had ties to the mafia, especially in that area.
But he had nothing to do with them actually, other than just living amongst them.
And he was checked out and investigated by the FBI. And apart from him being spotted at his friend's house, who was under surveillance at the time, his dad was under surveillance. And so they spotted him going in and out a few times. But no, he didn't have anything other than that.
Wow. We're probably one of the few people in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So how did John actually go missing? What were the circumstances and what did people see?
Well, he had gone to work as usual, and he had gone to lunch and as he got out of his out of his car, a van was there. There was guys waiting around, and apparently he was set upon. There was rumours, allegations that people heard a shot, but it wasn't corroborated. And basically dumped into the back of a van, driven off, and never ever seen again.
They found like little bits and pieces of evidence, right? I believe there was a button or something.
There was.
I mean, they were able to trace that's where the last place he was seen.
Yeah, and the his car was obviously taken as well. The car followed the van, and the car was never seen again either, which more than likely crushed up.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if the car never did turn up then.
No.
So, and neither did Mr. Favara, unfortunately.
No, and never has.
Now, you go into a lot of detail about it is technically an unsolved crime, but in a way it's like a neon sign pointing at the likely person behind this particular missing person case.
Even John Jr. In an interview on 60 Minutes, he had turned around, although he didn't say it was his dad, he did say that the chances are it was him. The question was asked, and he said, was it him? Probably. Do I know for sure? No.
Yeah, and also you mentioned about Gotti's wife, who
Victoria,
pretty much went to pieces after her son's death. I think there was a book about her, written about her. I can't remember offhand, but she got pretty vicious as well, as far as wanting revenge against Favara, right?
Yeah, there's a number of different versions that are available in respect of what happened between John Favara and Victoria. There was a version that she attacked him in the street with a metal baseball bat. There was rumours that John Favara had gone around there to apologise and obviously told him to go. Then apparently he was in the garden drinking. And this was another time that Victoria was supposed to have attacked him in the garden because she couldn't believe he was out there enjoying himself drinking in the garden. I think there was a barbecue there as well. So it's difficult to really nail down the truth when it comes to what happened between Victoria and John Favara. But it is clear that Victoria was in a bad way because of what happened to Frankie.
And so was there actually any kind of documented threats that actually came directly from John Gotti?
I don't believe there were any other than what you would expect someone to be saying. I mean, he stayed away from it for quite a while. And then the rumor started occurring. Sorry, the rumor appeared that Favara was drunk, and that was apparently what pushed John over the edge, and he had to do something.
But that was actually not true, though, right? You said the police had checked all that.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think Victoria. I mean, I can't put words in people's mouths. I wasn't there, but I would have thought that Victoria would have had a kind of an influence, if you like, over John's decision, if that was a decision he took. John's alleged decision.
His alleged decision, yeah. So when Favara went missing, the Gottis were actually conveniently out of state, right?
Well, yeah. Again, there is talk whether or not John come back to take part in the murder. Or he did stay away on holiday. Again, would you be, if you're going to go that far, would you be happy with the fact that someone else pulled the trigger, if you like? Or would you want to pull the trigger to get that ultimate revenge? Or is revenge just enough? So again, wasn't there. No one's really talked about it. So whether he come back or not, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you go into quite a bit of detail about a bit about the rise of Gotti and all these other characters that play a role in his life, and there was quite a lot of court testimony that you reference in the story as well, and specifically about how one dispenses of a body, and what is potentially thought of as perhaps what happened to Mr. Favara.
Yeah, with the I assume you mean acid.
Yeah.
And apparently, which it's alleged it was Charles Caniglia, who again is so. I don't want to say spuriously linked, because he is quite linked in more ways than one to it. But yeah, it was he that was supposed to have got rid of the body. Apparently they couldn't find the right acid, and then they found the right acid and managed to get rid of his body. And it's again subject to rumor, but it's a rumor that's out there more than once from other areas, that Ruggiero, who was basically the one to influence this murder to get sorted, he was sitting down in a restaurant eating, and that's when someone come in and left some evidence, let's just say. Don't want to give too much away.
Yeah. That was quite a visceral bit of evidence. I remember, in the past, the people thought of when the mob got rid of someone, it was the old cement boots thing.
Yeah.
Dump them like in Biscayne Bay in Miami or something like that. But so this acid thing, when did this kind of come into play, or was this always something that they used as an option?
It's been so. I mean. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know how long it's been around. That I didn't research that, to be honest. It's just become such common within. But that's a good opportunity there to give Christian Cipollini a plug with his latest venture with National Geographic. Where these programs where they clear the ocean and then you get to see beneath the ocean. Well, they're doing rivers, and obviously Christian Cipollini is going to be mob linked, so they're going to be clearing the rivers to see obviously where the mafia bodies are buried. So that looks a really interesting show that's coming up pretty soon.
Well, funny you mentioned about the rivers, because with the drought and all this stuff going on, apparently Lake Mead, which is outside of Las Vegas, bodies are turning up in there that have been God knows how long they've been in there, and it's assumed these were probably mob hits, and they just dumped them in Lake Mead.
Yeah, I've been keeping abreast of that, and I believe they found a couple of barrels as well. So it'd be interesting to find out who actually did turn up there, but. With Favara, I don't think he's anywhere in a river. He's going to be in Davy Jones's locker, that's for sure.
Oh, well, I mean, I was just thinking about that when I was, with the whole Lake Mead thing. And, when I used to go to Vegas and visited Lake Mead, and when there was actually water, a nice amount of water, and you dip your feet in there when it's hot. And I'm thinking, oh my God, now it's like, how many people were under that lake when I was dipping my feet or taking the boat out on there,
Yeah. How many more is there under that? I mean, because it's still drying up, isn't it, Lake Mead?
Everything's
still
drying
uncovering,
up.
Yeah. It's uncovering quite a lot of secrets. I think there's still more to come.
God, well, that would probably be a bit far for like, say, New York mobsters to travel, but the Vegas ones, obviously that's quite convenient.
Yeah, not necessarily. Well, probably, yeah, that is, I suppose, too far, but it is normally out of area guys that come in and do a job. So obviously it's not it's a different crew. I'm trying to think, who is it? Angelo was it Alphonse? I can't remember now. I can't remember. Indelecti. I can't say his surname. But Vito Rizzuto come down from Canada. to take part in that hit. So I'm terrible with names. I am terrible with names.
Well, there's so many. There's so many. It's like I said, with your stories, you got to kind of read them a couple of times because there's just so much going on and so many people and so many connected.
Yeah, and I've not really. I think this story here was the last kind of organized crime thing I'd done. Because obviously my if you like private life, personal life, professional, whatever, is about justice reform. And that kind of took over my life for a bit, and it still has, which is a good thing. Always good to be busy.
Yeah.
But the organized crime stuff has had to take a bit of a back shelf for a while.
Well, I mean, what is it that actually attracted you to these stories about mobsters and researching their lives and all these connections? Because I mean, you really, really do get into all these interconnected people, which is quite a bit of research and a lot.
Well, this goes back. I mean, I was very young. I was only 10 myself. And I was looking for, I didn't really, I mean, I know this now. I didn't know this at the time that I was looking for, if you like, an anti-hero. But there was a guy that he had escaped from prison. I thought he had escaped from prison. He had walked out of an open prison, but I was only 10 years old. As far as I was concerned, this guy had escaped from prison. And they spoke about how he was like part of the torture gang in South London and so on and so forth. So I delved a little bit more deeper than that. And then the American Mafia got mentioned. Who are they? Obviously, I'm still young. And I wouldn't have seen The Godfather. I don't think I'd have been too young for The Godfather. What was The Godfather? 72. So I was only 3 when that came out. I think Godfather 2 was a few years later. Godfather 3 I watched, and then obviously went back. But no, so Charlie Richardson was really the beginning of it. I went on to the Mafia, the American Mafia, and then of course I come across the Sicilian Mafia, and then started finding out about, and then all the other mafias that are in Italy, and Drangheta and oh, look, my brain's gone already.
It's okay.
What can I think? Yeah.
It's evening.
It is evening, yeah. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
I've had to watch England get hammered by France.
I mean, that's enough to fry anybody's brain. Yeah. No, but it's just rather interesting that London lad is just this so interested in the American mob. I mean, that's just.
But it did start off British. It did start off British, and of course there was Bert Rossi as well, who is said to be, if you like, the Gambino man in London. I know there's been other rumours about other people that have been involved with the mob in London, but yeah, Bert Rossi. So again, there was another link there with the American Mafia. So, and of course, the Crays and Frankie Fraser. Billy Spot, Albert Dimes, all the old kind of old schools, Sabatinis, all the organised crime that went on over here, like Jack Spot, going back to Jack Spot. So although it was something I got into quite early, as you know yourself, it's such a huge subject that's probably taken me all this time to talk, but no, it's I find it so fascinating. I really do. I'm not here to glorify it, and yes, I ended up in the justice system myself. I was never involved in organised crime, but I just find it so fascinating. There's so many messages, if you like, to come out of it. Because in the Mafia, you're either dead or jail. That's it. There's no in between. You get a little bit of fun for a few years. And is it really fun? You're always on the run from the FBI. You're having to be paranoid. You can't trust anybody. It doesn't sound like a fun life to me. Perhaps once or twice a week when you're having a decent meal with your family and you don't have to pay for it, that's probably the best times that they have. But no, there's probably more times than that. But no, I mean, so there's a lot of kind of crossover stories that I can utilize, if you like, when trying to campaign for reform to the justice system. And especially if talking to kind of schools or pupil referral units, them sort of places.
Well, I mean, there's just such a history. I mean, we go back. I mean, we all know the famous American mobsters, Bugsy Siegel and Dillinger and all these people. And it's just, I guess they just become these sort of cultural icons. And maybe in 100 years, it'll be like Gotti will be of that with films made about him, and
Yeah, but and you had, I mean, what I used to find fascinating was that you had like the five families, if you like, who were combined, but you still had the wars that went on. But then you also had your internal wars between the Calabrians, between the Neapolitans, the Sicilians. None of them got on with each other. The Camorra and the Sicilian mafia got on better than most, but so within each family they had their own little, I mean, Vito Genovese, he was Camorra, he was from Naples, so he was Camorra, and that was why there was that friction between him and everybody else. There was all that inner friction that was going on. It was quite bizarre, really.
Well, actually, mentioning about like film versions and whatnot. I mean, obviously, when they do a film or a television thing, there's fictionalization happening. But I just want to get in a plug for a series that I really highly recommend, which is The Godfather of Harlem, if anyone's seen it. And I believe it's based on, it was Bumpy Johnson was like one of the first Black mobsters. And it's an excellent series if anybody's interested. You don't even have to be a mob aficionado to enjoy it. So, but yeah, I mean, you take these people's lives and you just look at them and dissect them. And yeah, you do think you must be mad to be doing this as your job or whatever. But it does seem too that this is sort of a family legacy, especially in the Italian mob, where it's just passed down in generation to generation to generation and carries on.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, respect to any family member, especially a male family member, that didn't get involved. If you look at Michael Franzese, he wasn't. He would have been a top businessman, but of course, Sonny got put away. His brother wasn't great, so Michael Franzese had to kind of become his dad's middleman while his dad was in jail. And that was what got him into the mafia, or if you like, got him made. So yeah, it does seem that, and of course with Sicilians as well, their marriages are based on maintaining the family ties, maintaining the family name, so that it's kind of not interbred marriages, but kind of second cousins and cousins, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really tight knit. I think it's more so in Italy than it will ever be in America or ever was in America, especially with 'Ndrangheta. I mean, that is very much family linked.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, just to solidify the relationships with these, marrying people into this family, to that family, to strengthen their organization. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And as you referenced earlier, that even if you weren't interested in becoming part of the family, La Familia, you get dragged into it, and even if you didn't want to, because your obligation to your parent or whatever, and to pick up if they're in prison or whatnot. That's just, I wouldn't want to have to be in that position.
Which is bizarre, because once you become made, your family becomes the mafia and your family becomes secondary. And yet, because he was, if you like, doing something for his dad, doing something for his family, Michael then becomes made, and the mafia become his family. So it's quite it really is complex. It really is complex.
Hence the term La Familia, and it doesn't mean your blood family. It means your mob family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good. So you were mentioning about your other work that you do, but just to mention as well, you were in a previous book in my series, the Well-Mannered Crooks, Rogues, and Criminals book,
Yep.
and you did a mob story for that as well, called "The Monk, the Brain, and the Marlborough Diamond." And that's another one of these complex stories, and just a completely mad story. And we'll just mention it briefly. This was actually two big mobsters from the United States who go to London and end up in this jewel heist. Was it?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I'm still convinced that there was a lot more to it than we know. So the Monk and the Brain, Rachel and Joseph Scalise, came over from Chicago to London. But the thing was, they flew over by their own name with their own passports. They landed, they rented out a hotel room in their own name with their own credit cards, and then they rented a car out in their own name with their own credit cards. So they're both very intelligent men. It's very difficult to understand why they did that unless they knew that they weren't going to get caught. And I think had they had bought the right diamond or sent the right diamond back, they would have probably walked. But because they ended up getting the Marlborough diamond and not the Idol's Eye, which is the diamond that I believe that they actually went to get, because of the Idol's Eye links to the Chicago outfit, it just makes a lot more sense that two men from the Chicago outfit would use their own name, fly to London to do a robbery in a shop in London if they were after something specific. If they were just coming over just to do a robbery, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's enough jewelry shops in America for them to have gone to. So they must have been coming here for a reason. And the Marlborough diamond doesn't have any links whatsoever with the mafia. But the Idol's Eye, which was in the cabinet next to the Marlborough diamond in Grafton, London, that was linked through Henry Winston, who, of course, was very good friends with Tony Accardo, and whose shop was also broken into. And that was just after that was broken into, he then got rid of the Idol's Eye and sold it. He had previously tried to up its insurance, but he couldn't. Yeah, for me, there's too many links between the Idol's Eye and the Chicago outfit for it not to have played a part in the story.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. And I mean, you make a good argument that basically, whoops, we picked up the wrong diamond, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I don't know if they knew what they were actually looking for, but again, they weren't silly men. They weren't stupid. They both had high IQs. Art had he was virtually a genius. That's hence the name, as well as Brain. He was called Genius. He used to teach computer programming back in the 70s in prison.
Wow.
So
that was when computer programming was
very early. Yeah, very early. I might have got the date wrong, but yeah, they were very, very intelligent men, and it doesn't make sense to me why two intelligent men would pull a robbery in another country whilst using their own identification. It just doesn't make sense. And I would have thought, being linked to the Chicago or being members of the Chicago outfit, they would have had access to fake documents quite easily. They probably have Chicago outfit. I mean, Tony Accardo's day basically ran Chicago. They were in charge. So I would have thought that they would have had access to government departments as well for documentation. So it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it's weird.
And afterwards as well, following the robbery when they got arrested, they weren't going to be the fight was to get them stop them being extradited. I mean, and then they did get extradited back to London, but Jerry Scalise was still being paid. He was there was some information that was found out later. A guy turned informant that he was sending $2,000 a month to Jerry Scalise. And him and Art were in different prisons as well. As I say, it's really bizarre. It's not just what happened in the build up to the robbery itself. It's what happened afterwards as well, which really does tell you that there is another story to be told there.
Yeah, well, I guess it's another one of those, in a way, the unsolved atmosphere in there.
Yeah.
But yes, just to not confuse anybody, that story is in the Well-Mannered Crooks, Rogues, and Criminals book. So tell us a bit. You referenced earlier about working in prison reform and whatever. You did discuss this quite a bit when I had you on before, but for those people who weren't watching at the time, tell us a bit about how you came into that.
Well, I've got a long history, as I say, being involved in the justice system from a young age, in and out of prison throughout my childhood and throughout my adult life, until I got out in 2017, and I began to turn my life around in prison, wanting to do exactly the type of work that it is that I do now, and that is using my experiences to, if you like, influence policymakers through an organization that I'm involved with, a charity, that I'm involved with, Revolving Doors. I'm a member of the lived experience team, and we get to speak to the Ministry of Justice, we get to speak to the probation service, teams from the NHS, we get to speak to the judiciary, the judges and magistrates, we get to speak to police forces. I mean, we have a platform to be able to use our voices, use our experience to speak to people that may not be aware, if you like, such as neurodivergency, something like that, dyslexia, autism, ADHD, just to make people aware of everyone's an individual, and that the person standing in front of you come with their own problems and issues, and it's about trying to find out a better way, really. We've just had recent figures released from the Ministry of Justice that our prison population is going to reach over 100,000, 106,000 by 2027, which is bizarre. I mean, when I first went away myself in 1985, I think there was just over 40,000 people in prison. When I got out from my last sentence, not in one sentence, but when I got out from my last sentence, there was just under 85,000 people in prison. So it took from 1842, I think, 1872, I can't remember now, until 1993 for the prison system to hit 40,000. And from 1993 to 2000, well, to now, to double in 30 years, basically. So it took 100 odd years to get to this position, and then 30 years to double again. We use prison in the wrong way in this country, especially. We use prison in the wrong way for women who find themselves in the justice system. We use prison in the wrong way for people who are trapped in the revolving doors of crisis and crime, that are struggling with multiple disadvantage, so perhaps alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and commit low-level offences. And it's really about diverting people away, and that's what we do at Revolving Doors. We try and use those experiences to bring these issues to light to the people that matter, so that hopefully when they're making their decisions and they're making their policies, they take what we've said on board and make changes. It's not about, it's a very difficult subject to campaign for, because it's people in prison, and let's be honest, I don't get a lot of sympathy from members of the public, and in some aspects rightly so, because a lot of people do deserve to be in prison, but that is the punishment. losing your liberty is the punishment. If we really want to kind of reduce reoffending, if you like, to have safer communities, we need to use our prisons in a different way. If you look at a country like the Netherlands, who have become smart on crime and sensible with their sentencing, since 2014, they've closed 24 prisons. And their crime rate is dropping because prison doesn't cut crime. It doesn't reduce crime. It doesn't reduce having victims, and it doesn't make communities safer. It's the work that goes on in prison that reduces reoffending, that cuts crime, that stops future victims and creates safer communities. And yeah, and we don't have the death penalty here, and unfortunately, a lot of people in our prisons in the UK do end up taking their own lives because of the stressful situation that prison is and the environment which it is. So is it really fair that people are going into the prison system with short-term sentences? Having said 35% of people in prison that were on remand, 35% of people who have taken their own lives in prison were on remand. So that's people that haven't even been convicted of crimes that are taking their own lives in prison because the environment isn't right. If we are to have a prison system, why shouldn't we have the best prison system in the world? Why have the worst? Do you know what I mean? It's not going to reduce reoffending. It's not going to make our community safer. Yes, there are some people that deserve to be in prison. Yes, there are some people that deserve to be in prison for the rest of their lives because they are such a danger to society. However, that's probably 0.0001%. The other 99.9999% have an opportunity and should have the opportunity to turn their lives around. Yeah. I'll go off my soapbox.
No, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it's supposed to, the rehabilitation part seems to have been lost somewhere, which is unfortunate.
It's never had it, to be honest, Mitzi, the criminal justice system. It's not really ever, I don't think, been about rehabilitation. It's always been about punishment, and it's extra punishment all the time. Sentence lengths are getting longer, although the public don't think they are. They actually are getting longer. And it's just our prisons are overcrowded. They're at bursting point. There's a lot of people that are locked up in their cells 23 hours a day because there's not enough staff. There's not enough probation staff, so people aren't getting the help that they need and the support they need when they come out of prison. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. It really is. There is some good news. I mean, there is some fantastic work that is going on and things are changing, but unfortunately it's the justice system and things don't change overnight. It takes about 2 or 3 years just to get the simplest changes through the door. So, but it's happening. That's the main thing. And the best thing is the support outside is getting so much better. The pathways out of prison are getting so much more numerous. There's more pathways into employment now. There's more pathways back into education and further education and higher education for people leaving prison. There's apprenticeships available now for people in prison. So, as I say, that through the gate and the support the other side of the gate is actually improving, but it's what's going on in the prison and what's going on with probation that really is, and the courts as well, because of the backlog, that are the areas that really do need improving.
Well, that's at least something. I mean, nothing ever happens quickly, especially if you have to involve government and all of that.
That's the thing, yeah, when it includes government. But as I say, it's quite easy to be doom and gloom about our justice system. I suppose it's quite easy to be doom and gloom about any justice system.
Yeah, or
and
everything.
Not exactly, well, everything at the moment. Yeah, cost of living crisis, the war, global warming. I mean, it's not a great time to live, is it? But it is what it is. And as I say, it is improving slowly but surely. It is improving. People with lived experience of the criminal justice system are becoming more involved in what's being. I think it was a criminologist from Belfast University that said nothing about us without us. Shad Maruna, that was, and I think that's brilliant. It explains it all, and it is. It's about speaking to the people who are most impacted about their life, about their experiences, and that's where you find the solutions. You're not going to find the solutions in the boardroom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it certainly seems like you've inadvertently found your goal in life and your niche now to pursue that, and writing mob stories for me.
Yeah, I need to get back to that. And we've got to say as well about my story in the Well-Mannered Crooks as well. That's been serialised with National Crime Syndicate. But no, yeah, I want to get back into it. I'm due to interview Christian Cipollini soon. Me and him need to arrange a time. So I'm slowly getting back into it again. Yeah,
Christian was in the Small Towns book, so yeah,
exactly.
He's made his appearance too in the series.
But I do want to get back into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm really glad you were able to come on, and again, the story you wrote, Neighbors at War, The Disappearance of John Favara, which is in the Unsolved Crimes and Mysteries volume of the Best New True Crime Stories. And it is still unsolved as we speak, technically unsolved. You draw your own conclusion if you think you know what happened to Favara, but we'll never know for sure.
No, I don't think we'll ever know for sure. But
well, unless somebody coughs up the information and just says, yes, I'm responsible and this is what I did, but that's probably not going to happen.
I can't see that ever happening. No, I can't see that ever happening. So in the meantime, it remains unsolved. So
unsolved.
Yeah.
Unsolved. Yeah, I don't think anything's been solved yet in the book, so that's at least something. At least I wanted it to be released, not solved before the book was released. Yeah. Well, I've been speaking with David Breakspear in the UK, and David, thanks again for coming on with me, and I wish you all the best and much success and positive changes.
Thank you, Mitzi, and yeah, you too, and obviously I hope to have another contribution to you soon.
Thanks. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
See you later.